Welcome to the Field and Garden Podcast. I'm Jessie from the Gardener's Workshop. In this episode, Lisa and Dave Dowling discuss how we can expand our flower farming businesses by adding new crops. They talk about what you could and should add, the various ways to grow these plants, and how Dave's online course can help you make these decisions both now and for many years to come. There are some real gems in this one, so I hope you enjoy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're glad that you all are here. It's Lisa and Dave, and tonight we're going to be talking, we're kind of discussing how you can, all the opportunities to grow more, to actually expand your business. So, and that's, if you're a flower farmer, this is like the very next step is offering a wider opportunity. So if we haven't met before, my name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am a flower farmer, teacher, and author of a couple of books. And Dave Dowling, I'm going to let Dave tell you who he is and a little bit about him in case you haven't met him.
Okay, I'm Dave Dowling. I had a cut flower farm in Maryland for 20 years. When I closed that farm, I went to work for a Edney flower bulb company, and that company's been bought by Glockner, and then Glockner got bought by Ball. So I'm now a sales rep for Ball Seed / Colorlink, and I work with nothing but cut flower growers all across North America. So if you're looking to know about growing cut flowers, either from the class I do, or if you need to order the stuff for cut flowers, I'm your guy.
And, Dave, the more I think about it, it's like, what a darn gift to be able to have you to go to for counsel about what to purchase. So we'll talk about all of that in a minute, but it's just getting better and better. And so I know it's very confusing. I was just reading a confusing post earlier about people don't understand what happened with that whole transition. So Edney was a bulb company that we were all friends with Jeffrey and his dad that owned that company. Dave went to work for him. Well, then Edney was purchased by Fred Glockner, which is a really big horticultural business that sells a lot of different things, not just bulbs. Then that company was just bought by Ball Horticulture. Aren't they like the largest?
Yeah, Ball Horticulture, I would say they're probably the largest, if not the largest. They're huge all around the world and all around the country, North America, everywhere. And they sell seeds, they sell broker for plugs from other different growers, but you don't know that they own things like Star Roses. Ball owns that.
Right.
Same thing, that owner of the company would retire 5 or 6 years ago, so Ball bought it. Kept it a separate company, but it's under the Ball umbrella. Pan American Seed, Keft Seeds, I can't say what a perennial seed company. They own all of those. They've a lot of stuff to do with flowers and plants.
Right. And I know it's very confusing for people, but let me tell you, because I buy a lot of seeds through them, once you get an account set up through Dave and use their website is a little hard to get used to because it's a little different than most of the websites we're used to working with. But y'all, it is like a live website. You can go in there and see your pricing for seeds. Do they have the seed? And they pride them. I'm not trying to sell Dave stuff. I'm just telling you, it is just so much easier to order product now than it has ever been before.
I think it's so many capabilities with their web
Yes.
track that's what makes it seem difficult to use, because you can place orders, track orders, check orders, change orders, pay people, file a claim. So there's all these different options to do. So you got to know each little step. If all you want to do is orders, you can do that and call the office for everything else. But the other thing I want to Edney did not get bought by Ball. Edney is now back as an independent company that sells exclusively through Ball.
Right. So anyway, a lot of people are talking about that. So I just wanted to share it. So what we're talking about tonight is how diversifying your business can really grow it, right?
Definitely.
So it's like, my students from my courses are, we have really tried to get them in the trenches, teach them how to, really be a commercial seed starter, get a commercial garden and farm going, find your customers, learn how to sell, get a customer base going. And then that's the time that you can say, okay, I've got, for me, I guess back in the beginning, when I had 4 or 5 really good florist customers, they wanted to buy everything that I had. And when I was learning, it was just seeds, it was annual stuff primarily. And a few, I would buy in some plugs, and I had a few perennials, just a handful. But it didn't take me long to figure out, Dave, that adding in, having 20 different flowers to offer to them every week instead of 10 meant they bought more from me. That did not mean they bought less of my annuals, right?
Right. I always like to say, Baskin Robbins, if they only had vanilla and chocolate, they'd have a terrible 31 flavors. So the more flavors of flowers you have to sell.
So, and y'all bear with us, Dave, your internet just kind of went wonky for a minute. Dave is actually in a hotel, not at his home. So I hope we'll get through this. So we'll just have to hang tight with that. So the things that I really wanted us to talk about is, first off, the way that most of us start dipping our toe into buying stuff is just by trial and error, right? And that's kind of the costly way to do it, right? I mean, I wanted to just talk about, maybe you could just share a couple of stories with us about folks that, are fairly new to business. I mean, I consider anybody under 10 years new, because there is so much to learn, don't you?
Definitely, yes.
And so you can do it the way that Dave and I did it, where we kind of did it by trial and error. We probably wasted a lot of money, but more importantly, we wasted a lot of time. And that's for some people. I understand that some people, that's their way to do things, the DIYers that want to figure everything out for themselves. But there are ways to do it, to get from A to Z a whole lot quicker. So flying by the seat of your pants is not necessarily the best way to go. So Dave.
Right. I know a grower who planted a bunch of Nandina to have the red berries or the orange berries for the fall. And after 3 years, she was disappointed because they're only 18 inches tall. Well, I was there and I looked at the label, and it doesn't say dwarf, but you look it up, it's a dwarf variety. It gets to be 20 inches tall. No matter how long you wait, it's never going to be that 4 foot tall with these big bunches of berries. It's a dwarf little teeny Nandina. So she made a mistake by buying them from a friend who had a nursery, and they just didn't make the right conversation or didn't discuss it right. And they sold her a really short one that's never going to work for her. So it's mistakes like that you want to avoid, because she spent several $100s on those shrubs.
Not to mention the years she waited.
3 years behind.
And I mean, so from somebody like me that's now, after I've been doing it for so long, and how thankful, this is the time of the year that I am so grateful for the perennials that I have growing on my farm for foliage, Solomon seal, Lenten roses, those things that each year they get better and better and more abundant and taller and more of them. I mean, to wait 3 years to find out, not only did you waste your money and you waited, now you got to get rid of them.
Right. You got to get rid of them.
It just gets deeper and deeper. So it seems so simple, but as a business, and we're not talking about, while I do believe that your course is one of our school courses that is so suited to avid gardeners, this course really lays the pathway out for folks. So for me, we're thinking about, we need to select for variety and what's the best value. About what's the number one perennial you say get in the ground ASAP?
Peonies. If you know you're going to do this as a job, career, profession, business, plant your peonies as soon as possible. Even if you only plant 3 of them, start planting peonies, because they take about 3 years before you start to get any production out of them. So every year you wait is one less year of income from those. And they are like the best stock you could ever buy, because every year they just makes you more and more money. If you had 1,000 plants, in 3 years, you might have 2,000 stems. In 10 years, you have 10,000 stems. And just the longer they're in there, the more money you make. So the sooner you start that investment of your peonies, the sooner you're going to get that return. That return happens year after year after year without fail. It's amazing. It's probably the highest dollar return of any perennial you can buy.
So this is just such the perfect time to talk about this. So I consulted with Dave like 3 years ago when we had to relocate my peony patch. Mm-hmm. So you saw it, Dave, we got over 2,000 stems of peonies from that bed this year. It's 90 feet long and it's 2 rows, but you have to know that my roots are really mature. They were old, they were our grandma's, but I mean, you can do the math, 2,000 stems. And I mean, what an enormous bonus, right?
And that happens every year, every late May, early June. You can have that income guaranteed. You can bank on it. You can know you can pay a big mortgage payment in June 15th because you just sold another $10,000 of peonies every year. So the sooner you get those planted, the better.
And so that's just one of the things that is knowing this information. It's like, all right, what should I spend my money on? You know, because we look and like every pretty flower grabs you. It's like you fall for them. And it's like there's more to this decision than just a pretty flower. For me, it's the value of having these perennials for foliage and filler is proven to be truly priceless. It is pretty dadgum amazing. So Dave, the other thing that I think that most of us didn't even know until we learned it from you is how are you going to grow this crop? There's choices. Do you grow it in the field or do you take up house space? Do you grow it in beds or do you grow it in crates? The light bulb moment for me learning about growing tulips and lilies and other bulb crops in crates was like, I mean, wow. I had huge vole damage alone, not to mention all the other benefits. That is just talk about that for just a minute. Yeah.
There's lots of cut flower crops that you can grow in the bulb crates that if you order enough bulbs, they should come in a crate. And sometimes you have to request it. You place your order, say, please ship in a bulb crate so you don't get a cardboard box. But there's lots of things you can grow in a crate for ease of harvesting, ease of watering. There's no weeds, keeps out the rodents, the voles. There's some things like hyacinths. A lot of people don't think of those as cut flowers. They're one of the best things to grow in a crate because when that crate of 50 hyacinths is ready, you put the whole thing back in the cooler. You don't have to sell it today. You can sell it over the next 4 weeks and just take out 10 each week to the florist or 20, whatever you need. And they hold in the cooler perfect for 4 weeks.
I mean, this kind of information, and y'all, I just don't think people understand the depth of knowledge that comes in these courses. Dave's course is laid out literally like a book. I mean, it's class 1, bulbs, and there's actually 2 classes on bulbs. A class is a week's worth of sessions, and it has all the different bulbs listed. That means that when you go to harvest tulips next spring, all you do is go back into your course, go straight to tulips and get to watch what he's talking about. Or if you're going to grow hyacinths, right? Yep. I mean, there's no way that we can remember all the stuff that you learn in this course. And it's just.
Yep. And whether you're planting or picking or whatever you're doing, you can look on your phone at the class a year from now, 2 years from now and say, oh, how am I supposed to be doing that? And bring up whether it's tulips or hydrangeas and bring it up and refresher course it right out in the field.
It's true. So the course has a phone app and it is super easy to rewatch it. And literally so many of your students, kind of a phrase that they use is that I have Dave in my back pocket because their phones are in their pocket. So making that choice of which way to grow something and to be able to have that information, something that I've really prided myself on for all of these courses that we offer of these different schools is for our instructors are people that have done it. It's practical, done it, not for 3 years, not for 5 years, a decade or more. And there's so much in experience, right, Dave? I mean, I used to be a reader of everything, but I can still remember going, one of the first farms I ever went to was yours. And I just walked around with like the person with the big eyes. It's like seeing things. It's like, I never imagined that's how that should be done.
That's how you do that, the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So here is another important piece of information that a lot of people don't know. When you grow cut flower crops, like let's just take perennials or bulbs. Bulbs are a great one. This will be a great tulip talk. Whether a crop, regardless of what any book or reference tells you, is it truly a perennial or is it a one and done when you grow it as a cut flower? And the number one thing that comes to my mind, even though I think most people don't call them perennials, many people think they are tulips. so many people think they're going to come back. So talk about tulips for a minute, Dave. And
A couple of reasons tulips won't come back or won't come back as a good enough stem and flower to be a cut flower. Number one is because you're going to you don't cut tulips, you pull them. So you're pulling up all the leaves that are going to regenerate the bulb for next year. So the bulb is not going to be big enough to produce a flower the second year. Number two, that bulb that you planted last October or November grows and blooms this spring. If you leave it in the garden, like just a landscape tulip, that tulip dies back in mid-June and it's done. But if you were to dig that bulb up in the middle or late June, instead of one bulb that you plant, which they call the mother bulb, it's almost like a clove of garlic. You open it up and there's 4 or 5 little teeny bulblets inside of that original bulb. And those aren't big enough to produce a flower the second year. So what is done in Holland, they take those little bulblets, what they call daughter bulbs, plant them in that fall, grow them for the next spring. And that is the one bulb that you then plant the following fall to get flowers the next year. So even if you wanted to try your best to save your tulips and make them perennial, what you planted last fall is going to take 2 years before you could even attempt to make it bloom halfway decent again. And for all the time and effort to do that, it's just not worth it. The bulbs are anywhere from 30 to 50 cents. You plant a new bulb, get a perfect flower from it, and start over next year. One really important thing to remember is you always rotate your crops. All crops should be rotated. Those tulips especially should always be moved to a new bed and shouldn't go back there again for 5 to 7 years. Should rotate around, especially if you're leaving the bulb in the ground that gets tilled and it's left behind, just for disease pressure.
So, and I also want to say that Dave and Jennie, Jennie Love is another one of our instructors for 2 courses. They just did an amazing podcast talking tulips, right, Dave? And you can find that actually on our website. I think it's on Dave's sales page, but you can find it on Jennie's podcast, the No-Till Flowers. And that is just super helpful for people to know that. And so some of the other things that are totally overwhelming. I mean, let's just talk about tulips again. Which varieties do you bloom and buy? I mean,
literally thousands of varieties. Edney sells like 350, and they cut it off that. They could sell more, but they just can't. You don't want to deal with that many more varieties. But there's literally thousands of varieties that come in and out of production. So there might be something that's around available for 10 years. And then for whatever reason, the growers in Holland switch to a new variety and drop that old one. So there might be a red one that you loved for years, and all of a sudden it's not there anymore because they've now got a newer variety of red they're growing instead. But my rule of thumb is when you're planting tulips for cut flowers, if it's not listed at least 16 inches tall in the catalog, don't waste your time with it, even though it's maybe a well-known variety that everyone thinks they have to grow.
Yeah.
If it's at 16 inches, or if it's listed at 14, you might get 12 and a half or 13, maybe 14. That's just too short for most uses. And in the flower business, the taller the stem, the more perceived the value is. The higher the value, higher the price. You have the same exact tulip that's 12 inches tall, sell it for $1. You're struggling, make that tulip 20 inches tall, you get $2, no question. So the height makes a difference. So don't grow anything less than 16 inches. I like to aim for the 18, 20, even 24. And then also go for the doubles and parrots. It's the things that you can't get at the grocery store usually, and the wholesaler gets the singles in so cheap from Holland or other importers or even domestic growers who sell these single tulips, and you can go to the grocery store and they're $6.99 for 10 stems. You can't compete with that. But if you ever look at those tulips, it's always single varieties, never the doubles and parrots or the fringe, something different. Grow the unique ones, and your florist will buy them, and your farmer's market or designers will love your doubles and parrot tulips.
And, so a bulb that costs, let's just say 40 cents, that only grows 12 inches tall is less value than spending the same 40 cents for another variety that has more length.
Exactly.
And it just doesn't matter what your personal opinion is. That's what I've had to really overcome personally. It's like, to me, I'm thinking, oh, but it's so beautiful. That's not the way it works. Right. And we don't have to make it so hard, right?
I'll say the variety called Cafe or La Belle Epoque. It's a double tulip, but it's only listed as 14 inches. It's that cafe coffee color. Everybody thinks they got to have it. Well, for one, it's sold out everywhere already. No more available, but it grows. It's short. There's other ones that are better. Copper Image is similar. There's other varieties that are similar color, taller. Just go with those instead. And plus, saw one place selling for 95 cents a piece, and this was a wholesale place. They selling for 60, maybe 55 or 60, but some place just jack the price up really high, supply and demand, but don't fall for it. You don't need those. There's much better tulips you can grow or other varieties.
And that's where, dependent on people that have experience and wisdom, I just can't say that enough. I actually just weeks ago saw somebody was kind of having a problem. A flower farmer was facing an issue and they were asking for help. And there was 2 or 3 people that very proudly chimed in that have been growing, for a whole season. And it was really bad answers to questions. And there's just so much information available out there. I just want to caution people to really look at your sources, and like the source of what Dave just told you about, you don't have to buy the shiny object. There's 10 others right here that are even better, that are cost effective, and that do the job. That only comes with time and wisdom, wouldn't you say, Dave?
Yeah, you don't have to buy the most expensive, trendiest variety of anything, whether it's a peony or tulip or whatever. A lower priced one will sell just as well and make you even more money. There's a peony now called Pastel Elegance. Everybody thinks they need it. Well, last year they were $250 each. We sold a few. This year dropped down, I think $100, $150 each. People are still buying them. It's a pretty peony, but I just don't see as a commercial grower that you're ever going to make a profit on that for another 10 years.
Well, that's kind of in me. I mean, I talk about this a lot in my course. It's like you have to decide, are you a business person, a commercial flower farmer, or are you a hobbyist dabbling? Because I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer. You would never even consider, people could care less. But the majority of people could care less what peony that is. They just want a beautiful bloom, right?
And the cheapest peony out there is Sarah Bernhardt, which has been around for over 100 years. Probably the most productive, the best looking bud when it's about to open, long lasting, smells great. I tell people, if you're growing peonies, if you have 50 of each color you plant, you want 100 Sarah Bernhardt, twice as many Sarah Bernhardt as any other color, because you're going to sell that many. And
yeah, so I just want to stop again and say, so what time is it? It's 8:28. So y'all, if you want to be entered in to win one of Dave's courses, registration, it's $595 giveaway, y'all. All you have to do is make a comment. And so Kelly at 8:30 is going to pick the person with this app that we have from people that make comments. And I'm going to then announce it. She's going to text it to me. But I want to say a couple things about the course that people may not realize. First off, y'all, us doing this is just to really give you a taste of the depth of knowledge and the information that you'll get from this guy. But here's the thing, and I don't know that I've ever said this before to the public, that when you use our phone, when you use our app, I'm not sure if it's on your phone and your computer, but you can actually watch the videos, either speed it up or slow them down. And Dave talks so fast with so much information, you can actually slow him down. To have him recorded with all of this, I mean, just tons of information, and to be able to speed listen to find exactly what you're looking for, or to slow him down to make key notes is just absolutely amazing. All right, Dave. So something else that you provide and is like where you should buy this stuff. I mean, of course we list Ball as a source, but there's also other resources that you add in there, and you would think that these sources would be easy to find. I see every day on social media, people that are trying to start their businesses, they think they're buying good deals, but they're still buying retail. They are not they haven't gone behind the curtain yet, right?
There's several bulb companies out there that call themselves Wholesale in their name, but they're definitely retail pricing, and their product is fine, but why pay, 80 cents for a tulip when you can buy the same tulip from a real wholesaler for 40 cents? Definitely, just because it says wholesale doesn't mean it is. And a lot of companies don't really have a presence on the internet. They don't advertise on the internet if they're a true wholesale supplier. If you were to go and search a plug supplier or bulb supplier, Ball's name does not come up. Edney's name rarely comes up because they're not promoting themselves on the internet because they don't want to be bombarded with requests from home gardeners. So they don't spend their marketing budget and put the message out to homeowners that are going to take up the time and not be a customer they want to work with. So all the marketing is always done at trade shows and things like that are specifically for the wholesale grower.
And that's just another piece of this whole pie. I mean, everybody in all of our courses, we freely share where you can get any and everything. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about is what a lot of people may not be aware of. So we not only provide a closed private Facebook group for you to network with your students during the course. The course is 6 weeks long. I guess I should say this. The registration for the course is only open 5 days a year, y'all. If you don't take it this year, you have to wait until next year in midsummer to do this. And what I say to people is, why would you, if you're farming and you haven't taken Dave's course, you need to take Dave's course, because the information to build your business is the Tulip and Peony information alone will pay you back for what you spend on the course. But what I wanted to say is that we provide closed Facebook groups for you to network with the students, to network with Dave. He does a live Q&A every week of this class, which is 6 weeks long. You can go to the sales page with the links are in here and get all of that information. But here's one of the things that makes us stand apart from other online courses. And that is the fact that once you're through school, we then take that year's students and put them in the alumni Facebook closed group for that course, Dave's course. And our instructors are in and out of those Facebook groups. They're not in there every day, or maybe even it's like every 7 to 10 days, they'll cruise through there to see if anybody's tagged them, because we know that when you start applying what you're doing, you have questions. You know, I mean, and I tell you the other thing that has really, I mean, I have a bird's eye view of everybody, of the thousands of students that we have, is to watch people take a class and get in there and start doing it. And it's like 6 months or a year later, they're like, holy cow, I am now there. Now I want to add a bunch of Woodies. What am I going to grow? And they can go back to the course. All right, so here's a couple more pieces of information that I think people don't realize. The other thing that is really important, Dave, because I learned it from you, is what size do you buy? Bulb size, eye size, gallon size, right?
Everything from how big of a perennial plug, if you're buying perennial plugs, to whether you're buying bare root 2 to 3 eye or 3 to 5 eye peony. What size lily bulbs? Tulips, there's usually not one size available, but lily bulbs come in like 4 different sizes, and daffodil bulbs and narcissus, 3 different sizes. You want to buy the right size. It's going to make you the best return on your investment as soon as possible. So,
Dave, I have one other thing. So knowing what size to buy is essential. I know I learned that firsthand was when I bought daffodil bulbs from Dave. And he said, you can buy this size and get this, or you can spend a few pennies more per bulb and get more stems and bigger flowers, right? Totally and completely. This is a lifelong benefit to your farm, and to even if you're an avid gardener, because this information is just priceless. So go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Actually, the biggest thing is sizes is narcissus. You're basically a size 12, 14, which is always centimeters circumference, because they're from Holland, so it's usually centimeters. And that's the circumference wrapped, take around. 12 to 14 centimeter, 14, 16, and 16, 18 are the 3 standard sizes that all the typical narcissus or daffodils you grow as a cut flower come in those sizes. If you buy the size 12 to 14, you're going to get 1 flower. By the 14, 16, the medium size, you get 2 flowers. Buy the big one, 1618. It's a much bigger bulb. Usually has two eye or two noses, they call it. You'll get usually 3 flowers.
Yep.
The price difference might be 40 cents, 50 cents, and 60 cents. So if you buy the big one, you pay 50% more for the bulb, but you're getting 3 times as many flowers. So just at that, you go 40, 50, 60 cents. The first size, the smallest, can cost you 40 cents a flower to grow it. You buy the big ones, it's costing you 20 cents per flower to buy that bulb. So which one do you want to buy? So instead of buying 100 size 12, 14, just buy 50 size 16, 18. You're going to get more flowers and spend less money and make more profit. There's a really good chart in my class that just, you look at that like, oh, geez, of course. But sometimes it has a hard time convincing someone to buy the bigger bulb because they're looking, but this is pound penny wise, pound foolish. They're trying to save a nickel or 10 cents, but they're losing money in the long run. And
y'all, that's it in a nutshell. This is the kind of information that is so amazing, priceless. So the alumni group is something that you continue to stay in even after the course is over. We do offer a payment plan if you need that. If you're already a student of any of our other courses, that means you're a member of our family and you get the family discount, which is basically $50 off.
Every Friday morning, they get the new class.
Okay, so every Friday morning, you get the new class, and this is the way it works. This is why we're doing it this time of the year. This means that you're going to be in active class with Dave when it's time to buy bulbs, order bulbs, plant bulbs,
perennials, all that stuff.
Perennials and Woodies. And I mean, you're going to have him right there to help guide you. And that's why we moved it to this time of the year. When it used to run in January, because that's when flower farmers weren't necessarily as busy, right? But everybody was like, oh my gosh, how awesome would this be to have it during the fall planting season, right. Right before. So that's why that's done. But here's the thing, y'all, you watch at your own pace. So you get the new class on Friday morning. That gives you set the weekend and 7 days to try to take in as much as you can, because the following Thursday night, you have a live Q&A, just like what we're doing, but it's on Zoom. It's not, you do not have to be a Facebook user to participate. You'll get all your questions answered. There will be no unanswered questions. But what we just want you to, I think that folks that have never taken a course, it's just hard to comprehend how this all works. So you buy the course, you make a login. Anywhere you have internet access, you can access your online course. You just log in, and all of the classes that have already been put into your library are right there. Each week, a whole bunch more videos and resources get dumped into your library until you have all 6 weeks worth. And y'all, you have lifetime unlimited access. That means you can watch it as many times as you want, and it's still there. 2 years, 3 years. Funny that, I learned how to do all this from an online course, right? And I am now currently going through that course again. How much did I not even realize was in there because I was such a newbie when I watched it the first time? And that's the benefit. Somebody just said today, and when I was talking about this class on social media, and said, they chimed in and said, I just went back in and reviewed Dave's course because I'm in a new place now. I can add more crops. I can do things differently. And it's just pretty priceless. So we just don't want anybody to miss out.
Right, or you get where you're going to do the bulbs and perennials, but you're not ready to do woodies yet. Could be because you're not on your permanent farm yet or permanent property.
Right.
There for you to watch where this next year or 2 years from now, when you want to go and say, I'm ready to grow some foliage shrubs, and then you can go and watch those videos, those classes. Real quick thing you did mention about the class is if you do take the class this summer, and I add an item next year with a crop or something, you'll get a notification that there's a new class, a new subject, a new crop added to the class, and you can go back and watch that. So anything added, you get access to that also.
Yes, and that's a really great point, Dave, because so what happens is your course actually gets richer and richer. So the Q&As that he does live with his students is recorded and added to the library. So this year's students gets to watch, this will be your third class, right? So there's already 2 Q&As for each week's classes that you get. And then all the future ones you have access to. We store them all in one place, y'all, and you have access to it. So anything we add is there. So it is just such a great way, the best way to get from A to Z, the quickest with
Right.
the least cost.
And
And
straight bumps.
yeah. And, I find that we lose so many potential great commercial growers because people are, I talk about this more with my class because I get so many questions. Aren't there too many flower farmers? Y'all, we are like the BB in the Astrodome of the demand. We just have to become professional, learn how to grow and be a commercial grower. It's not at all like gardening. It's an eye-opening experience to become a flower farmer, but I love it. It's in our blood and we can't hardly take it. We just love growing and we love sharing that information. And so Dave, what else do we need to say?
Let's see. Just that the class also includes the stuff on Woodies because there's
Yes.
most of the Woodies are not flowers, not like you think in the hydrangeas that are a flower on a Woody, but a lot of them are Woodies that are you're selling for the foliage. And I always like to remind people that if you're selling to a florist or if you're making mixed bouquets, anywhere from 30 to 40% of what you're using or selling to that florist is not a flower. It's eucalyptus. It's any kind of filler that you have, the Solomon seal, all that kind of stuff is not a flower, but you still make just as much money off of it. It's just as important as the crop to grow those non-flower items because they make you money and pay your bills also.
And the other thing that I got away from it was my last little bullet here that you also touch on and talk about in class is pest issues and fertilizing and feeding. You know what I mean? It's the rest of the story. And Dave does talk about a little bit growing in houses. We do have a course that has a super deep dive with Steve and Gretel, but Dave gets your feet wet, and what the potentials are.
The structures kind of let you know if you want to go into structures. And if you really want to do it, then watch Steve and Gretel's and they'll tell you what to grow, how to plant it, and maintain the greenhouse or the tunnel. Mine is more to tell you the overview of it. And then you decide if you want to grow in tunnels and greenhouses, then their course is the next step.
What I was going to say earlier is we lose so many potential good flower farmers because they spend a lot of money on the wrong things. They have failures. They get discouraged and their family gets discouraged. My husband was only really willing to eat cereal for dinner during season for like 2 years. I wore him down. You have to get past that. You have to master what you're doing and start turning the tide.
I've seen a lot of growers start out and after 2 or 3 years, they stop because they're not making the money they were expecting. And part of that's because they weren't marketing themselves well enough and they spent money on the wrong things.
Exactly.
Too much business and not getting it out early on.
Yep. It's so true. So gang, we're going to get off here now. Thank you for joining with us.
Yep.
And y'all just don't want to miss out. So where will your business be in a year if you don't take the course? And think about where it could be if you do take the course and where it's going to go for its future. And we're just really excited. So thank you, Dave, for joining me. And we'll be talking again. And I can't wait to hear what's the name of your peony webinar? It's
Growing, Harvesting, and Selling Peonies.
So Dave, thanks again so much.
Yep.
And I'll be talking again soon. Ciao, everybody. I'd like to share a couple of notes from students about Dave Dowling's course, Perennials, Bulbs, Woodies, and more. So Sarah writes, whenever I need to make sure that my husband and I are on the same page about our perennials and bulbs, I suggest, hey, let's rewatch that section of Dave's course from last summer. Works like a charm. Just know that Dave has become our personal consultant. My husband and I are plant people and have gardened perennials for decades, but we never harvested a thing until 2.5 years ago. Wow, it's a different game.
This course was the best, and it is so great to be able to refresh our memories whenever needed. Thank you. Signed, Sarah. And Crystal writes, I am taking your class right now. Incredible. It has already answered so many questions I had. Thank you for taking the time to make such an informative class. It has been awesome so far. Signed, Crystal. Friends, I just wanted to share these kinds of notes just make our hearts sing that we are inspiring and empowering other people to grow more. And we can use more flowers in the world, friends.
Okay, welcome back. I put several links in the show notes for the resources mentioned in this chat. I also included a link to our instructor Dave Dowling's online school called Bulbs, Perennials, Woodies, and More, which has its annual enrollment window right now in 2022, June 9th through the 13th. If you like what you're hearing here on the Field and Garden Podcast, we'd love it if you'd tell a friend about us and leave a review for us wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jessie from the Gardener's Workshop, and I hope you have a great day.